Hi, I'm Diogo or Diogo, and this video is about this plugin here, the 1111 amp from Otto Audio. Here I will show you a song I recorded using this plugin, then I will give you an overview of the plugin and the session, and in the end of the video I will give you my considerations about it. But before we proceed any further here, let me clarify something. I bought this plugin. This video is not sponsored. I have no affiliation with Otto Audio, so everything I say here is my own thoughts about this plugin, right? So, take your seats and welcome to Diogo's Hideout. Well, before we proceed and I share my screen with you, let me just show you guys what I used to record this song. The guitar I used was my GRS Custom. It's a Brazilian-made custom shop. It has mahogany body, mahogany neck, set neck construction, rosewood fingerboard, the hardware from Otto, and the two pickups here. The bridge one is the Dimarzio Evolution, and the neck one is the Dimarzio Fred. For this song I used just the Evolution. From the guitar, the sound goes to the direct box. It's an IK Multimedia Zenfone DI. And from the DI it goes to the audio interface. It's an Steinberg UR22 Mark II. It's a pretty simple signal path here. Now let's take a look at the screen. Okay, now that I'm sharing my screen, let me show how I achieved the sound you just listened to. For that, I will show you guys first the plugin, and later and briefly the session. As you can see, this is the default interface shown as soon as you open it. It shows the front view of the amp, where you can find its main controls. I will try to explain briefly each one of them, that I think it will help to understand how to achieve the best sound of this amp. Okay then, let's start with the bottom left corner here, where we can find the presets menu. Here we will be able to find a lot of presets created by the guys at Otto Audio, and one particular folder called Ogre, where I put the 3 presets I created for the song. Beside the presets menu, we will have one of the most important controls of this entire plugin, which is greatly responsible for its versatility. In their website, the guys at Otto Audio calls it foundations, but I could easily call it something like topologies or voicings or whatever like that, cause it's way responsible for the entire feel, response, amount of gain of this plugin. You can achieve a lot of different sounds just in messing with these foundations. It's like if you can keep the settings, in this case the presets, but changing the amp. Next, we will find the global input and output of this plugin. And then we will reach a session where the guys at Otto Audio put a new feature here. Here, in the output routing, in addition to having the standard mono and stereo, we also have mono to stereo, which gives us more width by recording only one mono track. Another interesting feature present in this plugin is that it has oversampling, but not just oversampling, it's a well-coded oversampling, because I record this song using a buffer size of 64, and even with the oversampling at 8 times, I was able to record with no glitches happening here. And you must take in account that even that my CPU is relatively new, it's not a fancy build. And finally, we have these two buttons, the first punch, which turns the impedance curves on and off, and the second, power amp, which turns the amp's power section on and off. So you can use it with other power amps, whether from other plugins or physical amplifiers. Well, up here in the Otto Audio logo, we can select the different impulse responses built into the plugin, either by clicking on the logo itself or clicking on the arrows. There are 22 impulse responses carefully created by the developer to be chosen. Here, in the middle, we can find the main controls of the amp. Controls you would find in pretty much every other amp out there. Gain, bass, mid, treble, master volume, presence, and depth. I think I don't have to explain much about this. And finally, here's another exclusivity of this plugin, which makes it even more versatile: the impedance curves. We have here 9 impedance curves to choose from, where the first 3, 1, 2, 3, would be more scooped tones, the 3 in the middle, 4, 5, and 6, would be more neutral, and the 3 last ones, 7, 8, and 9, would be more mid-forward, more pushed. But not least, we have this button here in the upper left corner, which controls the window size. But that's not all. Clicking here on the front grille brings us to the rear view of the amp, where the magic keeps happening. Here in the back of the amp, we have first of all this switch here, where you can choose from 2 different models of the power amp, being the purple, the standard one, and the orange, a slightly modded model. Then we have here this knob that controls a pretty useful noise gate. Then above this gate we have these 3 switches. The first one in the left, called Punish, acts like an overdrive in front of the amp, giving that more punchier and tight sound. The second one, called Plus 10 dB, acts like a clean booster in front of the amp too. And if you are using both the controls, it acts like a clean booster in front of the overdrive. And finally, this last switch, called Plus Low, acts like a low frequency booster in front of the amp. Then we have this other knob here, called Power Tube Selection, where we can choose between 3 different output tubes: EL34, 6L6, and KT8080. The main difference between these tubes lies in their headroom and their slightly different flavors. It's usual to relate the EL34 to that kind of British tones, with looser bass and more in-your-face mids. The 6L6 tend to have a more balanced sound, with velvety highs and more bass than the EL34, being slightly scooped. And the KT8080s are the ones with the most headroom, being also the most balanced and the ones with the most low end among these 3 tubes, and they are still great for clean tones too. We now have 4 controls that act directly on the power amp, being them bias, feedback, sag, and snarl. According to the information on the Otto Audio website, this plugin simulates an amplifier with an AB topology output stage, so the bias adjusts the fixed polarization of the output tubes. Probably, at the center would be the optimal polarization point, around 70% dissipation. However, when we go counterclockwise, we go towards cold bias region, where there is more distortion due to the presence of crossover distortion and less headroom. And when we go clockwise, we go towards the hot bias region, where there is more headroom and less distortion, and probably more noise induced in the output stage, as the tubes will be working more time in the cycle. The feedback acts on the negative feedback loop circuit of the power stage. When at minimum or zero, it disables the presence and depth controls at the front of the amp, and it has the rawest sound. You can adjust this feedback to taste. The sag acts on the amplifier's power supply circuit, and in the first third of the knob, you will be in the region that would be called more modern, with diode rectification, and the further you go clockwise, the more vintage the sound you will get, due to the tube rectification characteristics. And snarl acts on the power amp's resonance, pulsing both the bass and the treble, which can add a bit more aggression, but if you go too far with that, it can get fizzy and fubby. In the end, for all these controls, there isn't quite a defaulted setting. Keep in mind what you are looking for and let your ears guide you. And this last control here, called amplitude, is the output from the power amp to the cabinet. Use this control to balance the volume level difference that you can find in different previous elements, just like impedance curves, cabs, or some adjustments like cold bias that could be quieter than other adjustments. The last thing that we can see here is the cabinet itself. You can choose between the 22 cabinets built in the plugin. You can choose the resonance for each one separately, and you can bypass the impulse response to use external impulses that you are more familiar with. Okay, that was the plugin overview. Now let's take a look at the session. I will first talk about the drums and the bass, and then I will go to the guitars. First, the drums. I have programmed these drums and used the Steven Slate Drums 5 with the Deluxe 2 Aggressive kit. And in the drum bus I have here the Aquamarine 4 from Acoustica Audio. I'm using both the opto and the discrete sides. For slight reduction in both sides, more for the glue than for the gain reduction. And the standard clip from Sir Audio to avoid any clipping in the drums. Here is the bass. I used the model bass from IK Multimedia to program the bass here, but I used just the DI, because I choose not to use the built-in amps inside the model bass. Then I created my own chains here, both for the clean bass than for the distorted bass. The clean chain starts with the Audio Fusion Bureau Blanca for a bit of punch before the amp sim. The amp used here was the Brainworks Galen Kruger. Here's the settings. Followed by the Neode Big All, just for a slight saturation. London Acoustics Brighton Optotube comp to tame any peaks and make it more even. Then we have here the True Peak limiter from Brainworks to avoid any clipping. Then we have here Tokyo Down Nova Gentleman Edition. You can see the settings here in the screen. Then we have here London Acoustics Type A. It's a tape simulator. And here, the last plugin in this chain, it's the CAD-PAN from Tim Patrick. It's a library for Nebula from Acoustica Audio. I'm using it instead of the built-in panning from Reaper. For the distorted bass, I have here Blanca with the same settings used for the clean bass. Then we have again here Tokyo Down Nova Gentleman Edition, doing a crazy equalization here. it's cutting everything below 750 Hz and everything above 4000 Hz. All the grind and the distortion is coming from the Aurora DSP Mammoth. Then we have here again the Nova Gentleman Edition, mirroring the same settings used before the amp. Then we have Neode Big Owl here too, to add a bit of saturation. Then the Tokyo Down Mullet Gentleman Edition to tame transients and make it more even. Again the Brainworks True Peak Limiter, London Acoustics tape recorder, and last but not least, Tim Patrick catch pan here. Let's take a listen what's happening here, just drum and bass. One thing I was forgetting to mention is that in the pre-master track, I'm only using the Brainworks True Peak Limiter with the setting at minus 1.5 dBs and the Restream to send the audio to the OBS, just it. Now let's take a look at the guitars. As you can see here, I have two buzzes, one for the main guitar sound and the other for complementing the main guitar sound, just reinforcement, as I quad track the guitars in this song. And down here you will be able to see that my lead guitar tone has its own track. Each pair of guitars in this quad tracking arrangement has exactly the same signal chain, the only difference being the pan of each guitar, one being 100% right and the other 100% left. Let's take a look at the chains now. As you can see here, we start with the Hyatune from Cocos Reaper. Then the signals go to the Tokyo Down Nova Gentleman's Edition. I'm cutting everything below 100 Hz here. Then the signals go to the Audio Assault Dirty Machine. It's like a pedal station. I'm using this Daddy Pony. I believe it's like a clone or something like that. And I created this clone booster to boost the amp. Then we have here the Otto Audio 1111, and here is the preset I created for it, heavy written. Here you can see I'm using the impedance curve 9, oversampling at 8 times. Here are the amp settings, and here you can see the settings of the back of the amp. Here, as you can see, the cabinet is bypassed, because I'm using the Miko from Emerson Labs, where I created an arrangement here of 3 mics. You can see the settings. Then the analog rack cleaner from Membrini Audio. I tend to use this plugin with almost every amp scene I use it to tame some harshness and some low-end humbling. In this case, I'm using with these settings here, and normally with the analog on. Then just the VU meter, and here I'm using a library for Nebula from Acoustica Audio from Tim Patrick. This is the CAD pan, and I'm using it just for panning. I can't say exactly what it does, but I like what it does, so. Well, for the other guitar, the only difference here is the panning. One for the left, other for the right. The settings for the other plugins are exactly the same. And here, at the guitar bus, you can see that I am only using the JST clip just to avoid any peak to clip the track. Almost the same is happening here in the secondary or reinforcement guitar. The only differences happening here are the settings for the 1111 and the volumes of the 2 tracks here that I've lowered by 7 dBs. Well, here's the settings for these guitars for the 1111. And here at the lead guitar chain we have a few differences. As you can see, we have here the tuner, then I have Blanca for a bit of punch. In the Nova I'm cutting below 200 Hz and above 5000 Hz. And here I'm using the liquid metal preset I created. And now let me show you the settings. IR is turned it off. Same settings on Miko. Now here I'm using Brighton Opto Tube from London Acoustics to tame any transients and make the guitar more even. The analog rack cleaner, same preset. Here I'm using the Arturia tape delay for a bit of ambience. And the London Acoustics Type A, the same tape simulation I've used for the bass. And the CAD pan with the panning at the center. Okay, now let's take a listen to the guitars of the session. Let me show you guys the pros of this plugin. What I can say, it's very well coded, it's brutal, it's versatile, it's light on the machine. For me, it's a winner. I just won't recommend this plugin for two kind of people. The ones that don't like to mess, don't like to tweak a lot of stuff inside the settings, or the ones that are looking for cleaner and edge of breakup tones. This kind of stuff you won't find in the 1111. If you are looking for mid-crunch to blistering high gains, you will find here. Oh, let me put an observation here. I showed you guys the plugin overview and the session overview of the song I recorded, but I didn't explore a lot of the sounds this plugin can create. But I will leave in the description below a video by Johan Lund. He launched a video here on YouTube a few days ago where he showed a lot of the sounds you can achieve with the foundations and show you guys the sounds this amp can produce, right? So I think this is it. Leave in the comments below what you think about this plugin, if you already tried it, and if you have any other comments to leave about this video, about the plugin, leave in the comments below, let's talk. Share this video if you like it, give it a thumbs up, and this is it. See ya. Ciao.